You are back.
Oh my.
Okay. A lot of me.
Ooh, yeah. It's always a lot of
A lot
you.
of me.
Too much for my liking,
How much
if we're going to
powers
be
do we have?
honest.
Let's check on powers. How much powers do we have?
Test 1, 2,
good.
3 out
We
here
have
at
the
the
appropriate-
pre-show on National Signing Day.
The appropriate amount of powers.
Yeah.
Until I start talking
Right.
from back here.
Inevitably, yeah, you're going to do that.
No wonder when I was trying to talk to her a little bit yesterday, she absolutely couldn't hear me
I wish we
while
could.
she was on the headphones because
I wish we couldn't have heard her
so
some of it.
loud. Yeah, what happened yesterday that you were upset about? I missed that.
I was just messing with her. She said I'm old enough to be her father, which is
Yes, correct.
which is a true statement. So it's not that.
Yeah, no.
it's not a bad
I think
thing.
we all agree that Vienna is very rude. I
No,
don't know if she's
incorrect.
watching the show.
She's not actually.
That's
She
fine.
usually watches it too. We can
I know.
usually
That's
say
why
something
we're.
and she
That's why
catches
we're.
it.
That's why we're.
Of course,
trying to
you would be
bait her.
delayed by at least a
Probably
few
like
seconds.
10 seconds.
She's
15
probably
seconds.
hard at work.
She's probably not hard at work.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to do.
Knowing
It's
this group,
it's officially we're back, man. It is officially
we're back in our bag.
Yeah, we've got scheduling games to do this weekend, so yep.
Okay. We were talking about voices before we came in. Okay? And I asked this to Ted Emmerich. Now, we all know Ted Emmerich. It's our friend.
Great voice.
Certified
fantastic voice.
A top 1% voice. Do we agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
His voice is just it's made for broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
But you know the whole bit about people don't like the sound of their voice.
Yeah.
And so he's the ultimate test case. So we were at state championships and we were calling a game together. We called Malakoff Franklin together. And I asked him hour before the game. I was like, "Let me ask you a question. Do you hate the sound of your own voice?" And he goes, I'm not going to try to do a 10-minute impression. He was like, "It's okay." So that strikes me that there just has to be something wired in your brain.
Yeah.
It must be there must be something wired in your brain that you hate the sound, that you don't like the sound of your own voice. Because I could listen to Ted read the phone book.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could read a
And
dictionary.
if he only thinks his voice is the sound of his own voice is okay, then there's something deeper in our monkey
because
brains.
I would go on to say too that even people that like to hear themselves talk, 'cause there's a lot of those people out there.
Yeah.
They love to hear themselves talk, but they don't necessarily like the sound of their voice on a recording. The actual sound of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd put you in the I love to hear myself talk category.
No, I don't like to hear myself talk. My job asks me to talk a lot.
Yeah, but that's
I
not.
end up talking a
I
lot.
think people who love to listen to themselves talk,
That's a different. I think there's a
they
negative
don't do it because they're on the air.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
And
there's
it
a negative
honestly has
connotation to that.
nothing to do with them literally talking. It's just the fact that it's a center of attention thing.
Yeah, it's a center of
that's
attention
more
thing.
of what that is.
Right. So my pickle, very shy,
Yeah.
has never been with a
Of
microphone
course.
in front of a large audience.
Yeah, we have a lot of shy ones in the
A lot of
office.
shy
Mhm.
people. I mean, really, if you were talking about, I think we forced.
We do have a shy one. Will is shy.
Will is shy. That's what I was saying.
Will has been on the podcast though,
one time. Yeah.
Yep.
It's been on once.
which was one more time than I thought we would ever get him on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we got him on once.
But Will's also a well-spoken person. He just doesn't speak much.
We haven't had.
He's trained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's media trained.
He is media trained. But he was an editor.
Yeah.
He's
He's good on camera.
he's good. I think he's great on camera. And by the way, he's a guy whose voice, I think he's got a great voice.
Yeah.
That is a personal preference thing. And I don't want to, if you don't want to be on air, I don't want to force you to be on air here at Dave Kim. I want
Except
you to.
for once on the podcast.
I want you to step outside your comfort zone a little bit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
For the sake of the content, every once in a while. But I'm trying to think of anybody else in the office who has not been on our air. I don't think Clayton and Brett have been on our air. We've had
No.
China on the air though.
Yeah.
China's
China's been on
the-
WTF.
China's been on the air. VNA now has been on the air.
Love your exit interviews with all the interns.
Interns have been on the air. So it's probably just Brett and Clayton.
Well, I also do think that there's a certain level, and maybe this is the broadcaster side of my brain coming out, but there is definitely ways to improve how you hear your own voice.
Yes.
And most of it is not actually the voice. You can't really do much about that, but the way that you deliver it can really help when it's oh my, because for me, I used to talk so fast. I mean, so fast. And it was my voice doesn't sound I'm not getting a good portion of my voice out of there. But once I slowed down, it was oh, my voice isn't as annoying.
I will
It's still not great, but it's not annoying.
People who have followed my career will know that I will still have times where I'll talk really fast.
Yes.
Like when I get excited, I talk really fast.
As a person that cuts 90% of you talking, there are times when you go.
Yes, I will get out over my skis, but that has been like a conscious effort of all right, chill out, slow down, stuff like that. So I'm better than I was. Amazingly, this is better than it was.
I could also listen to Gavin Moritz read a book.
Yeah. Has Rudy ever been on the air?
I don't think so, because I don't think he ever did. He never did a movie review with us. Like, that's how we got Adam on the air.
Yeah.
He
Adam
never
did a
recapped
movie
his
review.
Dallas Cowboys
no, yeah, it was
article.
Scoops Kalanick. Well, now we don't have an NFL section in the magazine. Thanks a lot, Sam Houston. That's the truth. Like we had to, that's not a joke.
We had to ditch the Cowboys.
We had to ditch
Sam
Cowboys
Houston.
and Texans because we needed to add pages for the Sam Houston preview.
Which is so on brand for us.
It really is. Yeah, exactly right. I'll tell you what. When the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, we'll bring it back.
All right, deal.
We're never getting a Cowboys section.
Hit the theme, Expo. Pickle. Hit the arrow sign. Yes, y'all. From the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Mothership here in beautiful Lewisville, Texas, it is Texas Football Today, a show on the internet. My name is Greg Tepper. I'm the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, a magazine, texasfootball.com, a corresponding website. Thank you for spending part of your day with us, whether you're watching us live, texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all the places, or you'll see us on the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice. Either way, thank you for doing your part. Support your local, mediocre internet show. I am sitting over there at the helm today, back in the saddle.
Yeehaw.
She's the Duchess of the Dork. She's Ashley Pickle.
Hi, friends. I am upset that I had to miss Math Tuesday yesterday, specifically because Math Tuesday after realignment is peak mathing.
It's as Math Tuesday as it can get.
Yeah. But that all being said, V&A saying Math Tuesday about took me out. It was absolutely fantastic.
Today is I'm sorry, singing my right.
I would never forget about you, Grev.
Sorry, I was caught up in something. The reason for the season. He's our director of recruiting here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Greg Powers.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, bud. Doing all right?
Happy National Signing Day.
Let me tell you how cool Greg Powers is, and you can see it barely in the camera shot. Barely in the camera shot. You may notice if you look at his collar, he's wearing another microphone. That is because, and you see it barely in the corner right over there. You could see his phone because he's recording social media videos while we do this.
Let's go.
This is a man who's on the cutting edge of
This is a man that's so lazy he only wants to talk about recruiting once for each one of these schools today.
I think we should call you Mr. Technology.
Today is...
It's like Pitbull, but worse.
I mean, yeah, because no one will
Mr.
ever
Tech,
compare to
Mr.
Mr.
Statewide.
Worldwide. Yeah, Mr. Statewide.
Today, thank you very much. Today, I'm gonna quit. That's it. That's
it.
Yeah, that's it. That's,
Happy National Signing
that's
Day.
also
All right,
the
we're
only
done.
social
Go and get
media
it.
video that we need.
Will's gonna be like, "Come on, guys."
Today is Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. 295 days till Thanksgiving. Pickle, you need to choose very, very carefully here.
Okay.
Do you want to wish somebody a 62nd birthday, or do you want to wish somebody a 36th birthday?
I feel like it's trick.
62nd.
It was a trick question, right?
62?
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Garth Brooks.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Garth is 62 today.
Happy birthday.
36 is Matthew Stafford, by the way. So you couldn't have gone wrong. That's
Well, Garth.
Well, great.
It's a hot debate. Is Friends in Low Places the most recognized country music song?
Ever?
I know that there are songs that they rate higher than that, but I feel like if you were to like ask somebody a country music song that's around at least close to our age demographic, like that's going to be one of the top.
It's definitely going to be up there. I would say it's in the top 3. I would have to think long and hard about the other ones, but like top 3 seems like a pretty firm.
Alan Jackson's probably got like 1 or 2 of them. He's up there.
Well, I mean, Johnny Cash is going to have.
Johnny Cash. Ring of Fire might be the one that is the closest.
I feel like The Devil Went Down to Georgia's pretty wide, and that's just because of the first part of it.
There's a Tammy Wynette song that everybody.
Oh, you're thinking of To the Window.
No.
Yep, that's the one.
That's not it.
Mm-mm. You want to keep going?
Mm-mm. Oh, To the Walls.
Anything else?
No, that's all the lyrics I remember. It's episode 1728. On today's show, folks, it's National Signing Day. It's National Signing Day. We're going to talk all about the biggest surprises. We're going to talk some of the Texas college teams and how they fared, et cetera. This is the time when really the recruiting kind of landscape kind of becomes a closed circuit. So we will be able to really digest which teams have done well and which teams have maybe underachieved on the recruiting trail. We will get into all that with Greg Powers coming up here in just a moment. Do we have first four through the door?
We sure do. It was Ed McElroy, jersey number 69, nice. Lau Good, and Vianney Moreno. Making right of her wrong yesterday, saying that Powers is the social media king.
She's just sucking up
We
now.
then had a comment from Dave Campbell's Texas Football that said Powers is #trendy-Mallory. So I'll leave it up to interpretation about who is running the Dave Campbell's account right now.
I don't like any of this.
But
I'm gonna go on a record.
We hear.
Let's go.
All right,
Mr. Statewide, boy.
Mr. Statewide.
Look how it's like Benjamin Button in here. Like it's age is worked in reverse from yesterday till today.
I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. This is This Week
in Cruton.
It's This Week in Recruiting.
I really had to let Powers' Cruton sink in.
Our director of recruiting here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. See his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. And, of course, today's National Signing Day coverage is brought to you by our good chicken friends at Chicken Express. Chicken Express.
Is there a National Chicken Express Day?
We will sign a national letter of intent to chickening.
Let's just make National Signing Day Chicken Express Day in the office.
I like it.
Let's
today is also, isn't today National Women and
Girls in Sports Day?
Yeah, because Bally tweeted out a photo of you. Do you see that?
No, I didn't.
You're like on a graphic, like with all the other.
Well, that was kind
all
of
the
them.
other very talented women who work at Bally.
Nice.
You're like happy,
Thanks,
Women and
Bally's.
Girls in Sports Day. But anyway, all that's to say, yeah, I'd be down for like National Signing Day is not always going to fall on National Women and Girls in Sports Day. But like maybe tomorrow we can be like, all right, it's kind of like when the 4th of July is on like a Sunday.
Yeah,
you get the Monday off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we'll do.
So
when I think of recruiting, I think of Chicken Express. In my mind, I know that maybe a lot of people who are fans of this show now do the same thing because I come across them like in real life. They're like, oh yeah, This Week in Cruton, Chicken Express.
I just love that when people see Greg Powers in public, they're like, hey, Chicken Express.
They think tendies.
Like that rocks.
Tendies.
I hope people look at me and think tendies.
I really hope so too. Like what a mark of a life well led. You know what I mean? It's This Week in Recruiting.
Thank you, Chicken Express.
And really, normally we have like kind of a rundown of what we're gonna do. This is much more of a vibes based episode. Because National Signing Day is here. It's the biggest day on the recruiting calendar, kinda.
Honestly, early signing day is probably bigger.
And I'm interested in your perspective about what today means now in the new landscape of recruiting.
Well, I mean, actually, today has been one of the more exciting National Signing Days because there were some pretty unique stories.
Mm-hmm.
So first, I'm gonna answer your question in two parts. First, I think that we've come to expect the first National Signing Day in the early signing period in December to be like the main day for recruiting now, right? I think that everybody would agree with that.
Yes.
I would look at this day as like you know what? I do tend to say this, but like this is a celebration more. You can, if I were running a high school program in today's current era of recruiting, this would be like the day that I want to have like my big ceremony. That I want to bring the school together to celebrate all the signings. You have time to like set it all up. It's not during the middle of the season. State championship games aren't getting ready to become, coming on. You don't have to host so many high school coaches leading up to the final push.
Right.
So this would be like the day that I would want to have that big ceremony and celebrate with the high school athlete, the student athletes, their parents, all your coaches. Thank them for, a job well done throughout the year, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to help with the recruiting process, especially in football, because it's so demanding and you kind of have to be on top of your game, answering emails and like setting up school visits for each one of these coaches. Just kind of think about this. Like, for example, I know probably Louisville High School, one of the high schools that's closest to us, they probably hosted it in the last couple weeks over 40 college coaches.
Oh, certainly.
Right? So Coach Odell over there probably had to set up 40 different visits and like be available and talk to 40 different coaches and publicize all of his players. Well, that's just for the class that's going to be signing next year in 2025 and kind of like helping finish up or put a bow on 2024. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of speaking. It's a lot of advocating for your program and your players. And I think that we should, as a society, take time to commend those people who do the work for some of those student athletes.
Agreed.
So it's not always like going off to a big school like Texas or Texas A&M. Sometimes it's going off to a smaller school, but it means just as much or more for some of those players and their families in those communities.
Yeah, today has kind of become – there's obviously like some big-name guys who've signed today. We're going to get to them in a moment. But today, in many respects, today has become a day where maybe the non-Power 5 programs do a lot of work.
Yeah.
The non-FBS programs do a lot of work. And I've said this before, and I know you agree with it. If you sign to play football at the next level, I don't care if you sign at a school that's got 140 students in it. Like that's an accomplishment. That's an accomplishment that another team has chosen you to be a part of their program going forward. You are good enough and have done your work on the field and off the field to get to that point, whether it's Division III, whether it's JUCO, whether it's Division II, whether it's FCS, or whether you're signing with the Georgia Bulldogs. It is a huge accomplishment to put pen to paper. Agree
100%, and I love the fact that here's a fact that I feel like's overlooked. If you sign with UTRGV, right, you're probably the best player at your school, likely.
Yeah,
very likely that you're the best player in the school. Maybe the best player in your city.
Yeah,
one of the best players in your county. And one of the top players in the state. And I think a lot of times you overlook like how good these football players are. But we get reminded of it every year on NFL Draft Day when some of these players pop up out of nowhere and get drafted, right? Like guys that kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah.
They're really good football players too. We could get into the weeds and be talking about like evaluations and who hits where and all that kind of stuff. But all in all, congratulations if you're signing today. No matter where you're going, we are happy that we have a chance to represent you here on this show in the great state of Texas, that you're going to be playing your college football somewhere.
I think
at the next level.
One of the things that I like about the way, and this is not a Dave Campbell's Texas football pat yourself on the back moment. I'm just saying that one of the ways that I like that we cover recruiting is from I think a more holistic perspective and maybe from a ground-up perspective of, yes, we're going to talk about Terry Bussey, signed with Texas A&M. That's a huge deal and a massive deal. We're going to talk a lot about that. But, I like that we had Cannon Lindbergh commit to SFA in our studios. That's really cool. That kind of stuff, because that kind of stuff matters, and I think that is representative of the kind of what we want our brand to represent, because I think that's what Dave ultimately was about. He was about Big Tent. He wants everyone, the reason that we preview every high school football team, we cover every high school football team, is because we believe it matters. In the same way that we believe that every prospect who signs matters. So,
and since you brought it up, and I'm gonna quite often hijack this show today.
I love it.
I'm gonna hijack the show by giving a shout out to Kobe Carthel and SFA.
Oh yeah.
For the recruiting job that they've done in the class of 2024 here. I mean, this class is really good, and it should be put on a pedestal. Like, it should be admired. If you're a fan of SFA, to me, this should be maybe of all time your favorite national signing day.
Wow.
You mentioned Cannon Lindbergh. One of my favorite players in this cycle. Obviously, he's a very talented player. Gunner's won multiple state championships with him being a key component. But outside of that, they continue to do a tremendous job. They picked up a commitment this week in a signing from Luke Ulrich, Colleyville Heritage. We discussed him in the past.
Boy,
he's so much fun to watch.
That is a Carter Yates favorite right there.
But like down that list, Trey Bates, defensive lineman from Denton Ryan, a football playing dude.
Yes.
This dude can absolutely go. Sometimes people overlook this guy, Trevonte Davis from Beaumont United, playing there, with Weston Davis. Weston Davis got a lot of the headlines, but Trevonte Davis was, like, by and large, I feel like a unanimous all-district selection over the last couple of years. Like, he was the guy that a lot of the coaches felt like was the best offensive lineman in that district, a very good district. Jake Gillespie, Alito, another championship pedigree safety with college football ties, of course, the son of Joe Gillespie, who is now the head coach at Waco Midway. A guy that really jumped up to me throughout the course of the season, Luwadi Jerkin from Pflugerville Weiss. Weiss had a great year, program on the rise, and SFA beat out, P5 schools and FBS schools for guys like this. So just axe them.
Yeah. It's been a really nice class that Colby Carthel and the SFA Lumberjacks have put together. Let's talk about some of the headlines, the big stories that are coming out of today. We'll start in Timpson. I think all eyes were on Terry Bussey, the number 1 rated athlete, and the 5-star DCTF 5-star, the highest rated unsigned player in the state of Texas. I don't want to say recommitted, but because he never decommitted.
I was struggling for the same word. I put reconfirmed.
He reaffirmed his commitment and signed. Like, plain and simple, it's over. He put pen to paper. He's a Texas A&M Aggie, and I think you got to give Mike Elko credit for closing here, because there were times what we were hearing was that it was wobbly, and he got pen to paper, plain and simple.
Just to kind of give a behind-the-scenes look at this thing, I guess, for fans at home that are maybe following recruiting just for today or just dialing in to find out more about Terry Bussey. Terry Bussey committed during a special commitment announcement, live commitment announcement here on DCTF. I believe it was back like at the end of September, towards the end of September. At the time, he picked Texas A&M over LSU. Those were the two schools that were really like pushing. He had 5 hats on the table, but it came down to Texas A&M and LSU. At that time, I would have said it was like 60-40.
Yeah.
Right? A&M won because they were in the lead 60%. LSU was 40% in it. He loved LSU. He loved Baton Rouge. He loved his visit there. Family had a really good time. So LSU was a close second. But the reason why he committed to Texas A&M was because of more than football. It wasn't – the football was, like, great, right? Like, he felt a connection with Jimbo Fisher and his staff at that time. But there were things outside of football. He – honestly, like, he's a homegrown star. Plays at a small 2A school in Texas, and College Station's fairly close to home, easier to get to. But offered for him, I think, the total package with the Aggie Network and various things at Texas A&M. I think it was just like the total package, total fit for Terry Bussey, and that's why he committed to A&M. Kind of fast forward the clock to the state championship games, where he had a remarkable state championship performance and led the Timpson Bears to a title. After that game, we spoke with Terry, and it seemed like at that time, based on his commentary, all right, wow, he really may go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is serious. Like, he's looking at these big programs. LSU was in attendance for that game. Georgia made a strong push into it. He took a visit to Georgia. Behind the scenes, I was kind of like hearing maybe there's not that much reason to like really worry about Texas A&M in this. They're like positioned. He's like getting a good feel for Elko and his staff, and like he wants to go to A&M more than just like the connection that he had with Jimbo Fisher and the outgoing coaches. It was deeper than that. But he did take visits to Georgia and LSU down the stretch here, so there was like a legitimate concern for Aggie fans to be worried that Terry Bussey may flip, right? Then I got the news kind of like in the last 24 hours, there wasn't going to be like a signing day ceremony. There was going to be a small ceremony at the high school, and that's when it kind of first like dawned on me, like, all right, I think Bussey's going to stick.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think this is probably a done deal.
You wouldn't make a big deal out of saying, like, I'm just doing what I always did. You know
Right.
what I mean? All he said I was.
So Bussey had a small ceremony at his high school, signed with Texas A&M, and that's the reason why the Aggies, I think, are having, across the country, one of the best national signing days. They've gained a commitment from 5-star athlete, the number 1 athlete in the country, Terry Bussey.
Mm-hmm.
And right before we went on the air today, they picked up a commitment from the number 52 player in the DCTF Hot 100, which puts him just like right on the cusp of 4-star status.
The highest 3-star,
Yeah.
basically.
And that's wide receiver Ashton Bethel Roman from
Mm-hmm.
Fort Bend Ridgepoint, the son of former NFLer Mark Roman, who is a tremendous wide receiver. I don't know if you know this, Tep, but Fort Bend Ridgepoint's wide receivers, they are sick.
Absolutely.
They have Mason Dossett, Ashton Bethel Roman, and they have coming up next year Dane Jones.
Yeah.
That's how did they have enough footballs?
Yeah.
For that team, but that's a huge get for Texas A&M in this cycle too, to kind of like, all right, we can pencil in Bussey on the defensive side of the ball, I think, for Texas A&M, and also a wide receiver that they were pushing for down the stretch for the early signing period, who picked Arkansas, has now committed to Texas A&M, and that's a cool story, by the way. The Ashton Bethel Roman thing,
mm-hmm.
he signed with Arkansas, and he was released from his LOI because Kenny Guyton, former Texas high school football legend, left the job and went to Wisconsin to take the same job. They hired Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator, and Arkansas graciously let him out of his letter of intent, and he went with Texas A&M today.
It's a big get. It's been a big day for the Aggies down there. Terry Bussey, obviously the headliner, but Ashton Bethel Roman is good as well. Mike Elko closing well here in his inaugural class.
Right.
It's this is always, you always call them like a transitional class. If this is a transitional class, pretty darn good. I would say the early returns are positive. Okay, other big headlines from the day. Other things that are sticking out to you as far as like we need to know off the top. This is the happenings of today on National Signing Day.
Well, Baylor was able to get a commitment from Joshua Lair, Fort Bend Marshall safety, who, again, he's the number 53 player, so like a borderline 4-star guy. He is a beast. Like, he's a hard-hitting, strong safety type, a guy who loves to fly into the box and make good plays, but he also has tremendous range. And he's the number 2 rated player now in Baylor's 2024 signing class.
Mm-hmm.
This was another kid who has an interesting story because he was committed to Kalen DeBoer in Washington and signed with Washington in the early signing period. But was able to be released from that letter of intent whenever DeBoer took the Alabama head coaching job, and he just decided to go ahead and reopen things. So Baylor was able to come in and make a strong pitch as to why Lair should come there. And speaking with James Williams over the last 24 hours, the head coach over there at Fort Bend Marshall, he thinks that he's a really good fit not only on the field for Baylor, but off the field as well. He feels like he's the total package, a guy that brings it from a leadership perspective. And if you pair up now Joshua Lair with Chris Wilcoma from Arlington Bowie, they've got to have the most lethal duo of safeties in the state because both of those guys are headhunters.
It's a big day here on National Signing Day. What we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Greg Powers is going to break down some of the signing classes as they stand right now. Still a couple of things that are going to trickle in throughout the course of the day, but overall, we're going to break down some of the signing classes in the state of Texas with Greg Powers coming up here in just a moment, right after this word from our good friends.
I feel like bustin' loose, bustin' loose. Come on, get on up. Oh yeah, get on up. Bustin' loose when you wanna sing. Bustin' loose, baby, do your thing. Talking about bustin' loose, yeah.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, even at home. We provide compassionate, caring support virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here.
Wing is the largest residential drone delivery provider in the world. delivering to your home in less than 30 minutes. Order using an app just like other popular delivery services, and Wing's automated drone takes care of the rest. It's fast, safe, and sustainable, and it's now delivering to parts of Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. You can learn more at wing.com/TexasFootball. Again, that's wing.com/TexasFootball.
Born and bred in Texas hits a little different, as it should. Texans love doing business with fellow Texans. VCR Now takes its Texas roots as seriously as its many partnerships with schools and universities around the state. It's also why we're so proud to promote our brand in the pages of the Texas Bible, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and on the airwaves of Texas Football Today. Driven by producing quality broadcast video, state-of-the-art audio, and LED video scoreboards at affordable prices, VCR Now makes sure to listen to your needs in its athletic department before recommending the next best steps. Building great products is our business, and it's our focus on building meaningful, long-term partnerships with our clients that sets us apart. From our 24/7, 365-day help desk, the training lab in our hometown of Red Oak, or our sports marketing business plan that puts money back in the hands of our athletic departments we support, VCR Now is built to last. Reach out to us today at info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW. Again, that's info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW.
Back here on the Texas Football Today National Signing Day special, I'm Greg. That's Greg. Over there at the helm's Ashley. We are breaking down National Signing Day now that the dust is kind of settling on recruiting, and we're really kind of starting to close the book on the class of 2024. So, Powers, with your permission,
okay,
I would like to ask you about a couple of different classes across the state of Texas, and the big picture of what they were able to accomplish in this 2024 class. Let's start with a team that I think, without dispute, had the best year in 2023 on the field in the Texas Longhorns. College football playoff semifinalists, Big 12 champions. As far as what they were able to do, turning that into a recruiting class, what do you get from a big picture from the Longhorns?
Well, I mean, I'm going to give the signing class for Texas a A+.
Okay.
Right? I think it's an A+ class. They finished currently number 6 in the national recruiting rankings, the composite recruiting rankings by 24/7 Sports. The number 3 class in the new SEC, just behind Alabama and Georgia, I believe. So they've done a tremendous job inking a class that will continue to feed a program that I think is on the trajectory to be annually.
Yeah, annually.
Let's go with annually. Let's go with annually now. One of the top programs in the country. Like, I think that they're a national title contender right now, year in and year out. What I really love what they've done in this cycle that stands out to me is the defensive back, or the secondary class. You have Xavier Filsaime, who's the number 1 rated safety in the state, a guy who is a wide receiver turned into a safety, right? So he has the speed and the athleticism and ball skills of an offensive standout, but has the mentality of a defender. A lot of times you see that transition, and those guys don't have that love of contact. Well, Filsaime's a dude who's that's one of his strengths. He loves to fly down and make big hits. He's a game changer in that regard. But he's also kind of like a ball hawk because he's a natural wide receiver. He can go up and high point the ball and make some really good plays. They signed the number 1 corner in the state, Kobe Black, top 10 player in the state of Texas, a kid who has the size to be able to take on 6'4", 6'5" wide receivers on an island, but he could also very easily move inside and play some safety as well, play some nickel back. I love him as a corner. Some people have him rated as a safety. I like him as a corner. I think he sticks there. He's very athletic. He was really good on special teams and offense for Waco Conley. So I think that adds to his overall profile as a top recruit. And then, of course, they've gotten a transfer from Andrew Makuba, who he was the number 1 rated safety whenever he inked with Clemson in Texas high school football, and a guy who I think comes in right away and makes a huge impact on the defensive side of the ball. I think that if the secondary played slightly better this season, or they had more depth in the secondary, that they're potentially winning a national championship. I mean, I think the line was that close this year. And you can't talk about this signing class for the Longhorns if you don't mention Colin Simmons, right?
Yeah.
So Colin Simmons, DCTF 5-star, has helped lead Duncanville to back-to-back state championships, 6A Division I state championships, the highest classification for Texas high school football. I love to explain Colin Simmons as a terror. I think that that's like the perfect descriptive word for him because he really brings it off the edge. He had 22.5 sacks as a junior. And I say he had 22.5 sacks as a junior to set up what I'm going to say about his senior season. I think there were some people who were sleeping on Colin Simmons' senior season. He battled through some injury as a senior, but also he took on more of a leadership role. And while he didn't rack up as many sacks on the field, he played assignment sound football. And for a guy who loves to pin his ears back and like flat out get after the quarterback, to see a guy who understands his role within the defense and plays it, I think that speaks volumes about the potential of Colin Simmons. If he brings that mentality to the college game, he has the skill now and like the smarts to be successful, and I think that's really important.
Let's go from the Texas Longhorns to the team that everybody's talking about, the Akron Zips. What do you got on? No,
don't know about Akron,
okay,
man. Let's try again. I don't think they even got a Texas signing this year.
They did not. No, they didn't. So moving on from Akron, let's go to Texas A&M.
Okay.
We mentioned that they've closed well. It's been a good day here on National Signing Day for Mike Elko and this new staff there at Texas A&M, hauling in Terry Bussey, getting Ashton Bethel-Roman. When you look at what they were able to do overall in this class of 2024, obviously a coaching change is a big part of that. But how do you feel like they did?
I really like Texas A&M's class. I mean, I think some people feel down about it because they were worried. I mean, like Jimbo Fisher is one of the best closers in all of college football. He's been that, even like dating back to his days at Florida State before he came to Texas A&M. Well, I think Mike Elko and his staff closed it in quite a different way. I think that they were able to keep a lot of the players on the commitment list who were really important, prove that they can recruit in the state of Texas, and prove that they'll go out of state to sign some of the top players as well. Just like looking through the list, I think that people are sleeping a little bit on the offensive line class that they signed. Mm-hmm. Ashton Funk is a guy who committed very, very early in the process to Texas A&M. He's a technically sound offensive lineman, a guy who I think that you can count on to be a contributor, and a guy that you can either count on to be good in pass protection, but also clear out lanes for, a tough rushing attack there that they're going to need to improve upon, throughout the course of SEC play. And I really like Blake Ivy, Clear Springs offensive lineman. He's a guy who I think really could play anywhere up front. He has the length at around 6'4" to play offensive tackle. He has really long arms, over an 80-inch wingspan. But I also think that he has the power and size to potentially go inside and play guard or center. When you talk about that versatility, it provides you a lot of roster flexibility. Mm-hmm. So Ivy's a guy who can move around and do some different things. They lost some guys, right? Like they lost some guys and kept some guys, but Terry Bussey is obviously a huge add today, a 5-star athlete. I think that his first look in college is going to be on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary, but don't be surprised if throughout the course of time his prowess on offense gets him some touches over there. I think he could flip over because of his smarts and his football IQ and provide some value on the offensive side of the ball. I love Dalen Evans, Longview Pine Tree defensive lineman. We could talk about these guys all day, but my sleeper pick here is Ernest Campbell.
Well, yeah.
He's the fastest man in
Texas.
Fastest man in Texas.
That's an easy sell.
Yeah.
There's an easy tagline here. Would you like the fastest man in Texas? Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, and that's going to be a yes.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I think that it's overall been a nice class for for Mike Elko and company. All right, let's go to Lubbock. Let's talk about the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Joey McGuire has, in many ways, I think, infused a lot of energy in this Texas Tech program. Not only a really great first year, a decent second year, but what they've been able to do on the recruiting trail what do you see as far as their 2024 class is concerned for the Red Raiders?
Well, I mean, they're the number one class in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Texas Tech signed the number one class in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. If you're not excited about that in Lubbock, I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, Joey McGuire is – I think he lives the life that you see on TV, right? Like, he's very excited about Texas Tech. I think something that he brings to the recruiting trail is something that I like to I mean, he makes me feel this way. He makes you feel like you're the most important person in the room, right? And I think that that's something that is a key to recruiting success. A lot of these guys are being wooed by top programs throughout the country, and they have to understand that they can trust their head coach and then also that their head coach loves them. And I think that's what gives Joey McGuire a heads up when it comes to recruiting. He also has a lot of contacts within the Lone Star State, right?
Yes,
and they concentrate on recruiting Texas high school football talent. You can't talk about Texas Tech recruiting in 2024 without mentioning Micah Hudson.
Yes.
The number one player in the Lone Star State in the class of 2024, bona fide DCTF 5-star. As a matter of fact, you can see him here.
Look at that.
On the cover of the DCTF Rising magazine. Beautiful cover, by the way. I think Mike is a guy that can come in and provide an immediate boost to the offense. I expect him to play day one. That's how good he is. And that's not something that I typically say about incoming freshmen, right? Like, I usually try to leave myself some wiggle room, but I expect Micah Hudson to come in and get a shot on day one to be that guy within the Red Raiders offensive scheme. Love what they did with Ellis Davis, offensive tackle. That was a big-time commitment for them from Prosper. I don't know if you know this, Tep, but Prosper's loaded on the offensive line. They got some youngsters coming up, and they all love Ellis. So, I mean, I think that's going to give Texas Tech a leg up on recruiting some of the younger guys like Connor Carty or Sean Stover or Zayden Crimpin. And I'm not saying that the Red Raiders lead for any of those guys, but I think that there's an interesting tie there now in Lubbock to come form like another Prosper offensive line there at Texas Tech. Will Hammond, 500 yards of offense per game.
Yeah, pretty good.
Quarterback, I think that a lot of people feel like they overlook. He's been a wire-to-wire 4-star guy, so I don't really know why you would overlook Will Hammond. But I still feel like he doesn't get enough credit for the high school career that he had and the potential upside that he has to be a success in college. Looking up and down that list, I think that they did a pretty good job of bringing in guys who fit their mold because they're guys who can run and they have a true athletic upside. And I think that you'll be looking back at this class and looking at guys like Oliver Miles or Tyson Turner or Peyton Morgan and realize that this was a better class than a lot of people nationally give it credit for.
All right, now we're talking, by the way, it's National Signing Day here on Texas Football Today, talking with Greg Powers, our Director of Recruiting here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Get involved in the conversation at hashtag TF Today. Let's roll on and let's stay in the Big 12, go from Tech to TCU.
Okay.
Sonny Dykes, obviously still in the afterglow of that run to the 2023, technically the 2023 college football playoff. What do you see in the Horned Frogs 2024 class?
I see a lot of guys that I think, again, kind of how we ended on Texas Tech at TCU, they've done a really good job throughout the evaluation process. Some of the 3-stars that are on their signing list I feel like are dudes who just know how to play the game the right way. I think that's really important. But when you talk about this class, you have to start on the offensive side of the ball because they were able to secure a signing from Hoss Haney in the early signing period. I think that Haney has a chance to come in and compete for that starting job as a freshman. That's a hard accomplishment to make happen, right, in year one. But I think the expectation was there from the Haney side of things to be a day one guy. And I think that now that Chandler Morris has moved on and they brought in some other guys throughout the transfer portal, as a matter of fact, they were able to bring in Ken Seals throughout the transfer portal, a guy who transferred over from Vanderbilt. I think that Haney has a realistic chance to win that job.
I agree.
So I think that when you look at the scope of importance for signings throughout the Lone Star State, that this is one of the most important ones because of that. He could be leading the offense in college football next year. I also loved Kyle Baker from Brownsboro. Brownsboro hasn't won a ton of games over the last couple of years. I do believe that they went 500 this year after a down year in 2022. The reason why they were able to kind of bounce back is because you have like a force like Kyle Baker. He's a guy who I think that they were looking for. I think this is a guy that they can get the production they were looking for Cordell Russell from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't work out with Cordell Russell there. I think Kyle Baker can come in and be like that field stretcher and be a guy who can be that Quentin Johnson within their offense. He's not 6'4", he's only 6'2", but he's a vertical stretcher, a guy who loves the high points of football. And since we're talking TCU, I'm going to mention a couple of my sleepers that I really like in this class, guys to keep an eye on. And that's defensive lineman Tristan Johnson from Hurst LD Bell.
Mm-hmm.
Really like him. I like Devondre McGee, cornerback from Conroe, who was the best player on the field that wasn't named Justin Williams or Joseph Jonah Ajonye in the Conroe Oak Ridge game that I watched this year. And I love me some Tobias Steps at Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
Tobias Steps is an offensive tackle with a tremendously high upside. And, of course, he made his commitment here in the DCTF studios, and that was a fun day for us.
So we're big fans of his,
Yeah.
obviously, even more so. All right, let's keeping the Big 12 and talk about the Houston Cougars. Also a coaching change there, Willie Fritz taking over for Dana Holgerson. Dana Holgerson, I would say that in recent years the recruiting kind of fell off there at Houston, which may have...
It was different.
It was different. They were a little bit more portal heavy. I think that maybe contributed to his downfall. I'm curious in what you're seeing from this inaugural Willie Fritz-led Houston class.
I really like the high school class. They did a really good job of keeping guys on the commitment list like Maurice Williams, who was the highest-rated recruit to Houston since Ed Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big win for them. He's a DCTF 4-star, another guy who is a team leader, a guy that you can depend on to kind of take the other defenders under his wing and like kind of coach them up when they need it. Can play safety, can spin down into the box and play some linebacker. They recruited him as a safety. Raekwon Bell, he's a big offensive road grader from Spring Westfield. Plenty of experience playing left tackle, but I think his best fit may be inside at offensive guard, so that's something to keep an eye on. He was an Under Armour All-American, so that means something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Houston signed an Under Armour All-American. I think that's going a little bit under the radar as you talk about this class. A guy who I love, Zion Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have like the measurables that some of the other players have in this cycle, but if you know anything about Shadow Creek football, like Zion Taylor has been the man on that defense for years. Like, he is a football playing dude. He makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage, but he's also powerful enough to like sniff out the run and take on blockers. Only 6'1", 240, but he's much more explosive than what his measurables indicate. They've also really attacked the transfer portal. As we're talking about this class, they have 18 transfers coming in. So this is going to be a completely different team. This isn't going to be the same team on the field next year that we saw this year. Like, there's been a lot of changeover.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very different. And you know, hopefully, I think for Cougars fans, that the arrow is pointing up as far as the high school recruiting is concerned. Rounding out the Big 12, let's go to Baylor.
Okay.
The Baylor Bears, it was a very difficult 2023 season for Dave Aranda, trying to get things back on track on the recruiting track, on the recruiting front. We mentioned they got a nice win today with the addition of Joshua Lair from Fort Bend Marshall. Overall, holistically, the big picture for Baylor for 2024's class is?
Well, you know what? When you asked me this in the early signing period, I was kind of down on it. At that time, they had the number 16 class in the new Big 12, which was towards the bottom. Today, Baylor kind of like turned it around a little bit. One, they got a huge commitment right out of the gates early this morning from Fort Bend Marshall safety Joshua Lair, who's the number 53 rated prospect in the DCTF Hot 100, hard-hitting safety, a defensive leader, a guy who I think also has an NFL upside. So I think this is a huge get for Dave Aranda and the Bears. But they also, just like as we're doing this show, inked Alex Foster, defensive lineman out of Mississippi. A lot of people thought like he was going to be flipping to Texas. He had a close relationship with Bo Davis. Bo Davis left, went to LSU, kind of like reopened the door for Baylor to get their foot back in it and make sure that they inked Alex Foster. He's the highest rated commitment in this class regardless of position. So that tells you something about his overall skill set. So he picked Baylor over some SEC programs, and of course, Texas was pushing hard for him in the early signing period. There's some, I think this class is a little bit slept on nationally. I don't disagree with its ranking because it's not a very big class. They have 14 players who signed a letter of intent. Some of the names that step out to me is 4-star DCTF wide receiver Jadon Porter from Lorena. I really like him. I think that he's a guy because he's committed for so long. He was committed for like 2 years. That a lot of people don't talk about him, but I think if he was one of these uncommitted guys, he would have a lot more praise surrounding his name. And of course, Joseph Dodds, who led Tidehaven to a state championship appearance this year. I think everybody found out about Dodds throughout the course of the 2023 season and exactly what Baylor was getting. He's a guy who can instantly transform your offense and a guy you can lean on like in red zone situations to power the ball over the goal line and score touchdowns, which I think is an element that was missing from the Bears offense this year. They just didn't have that closer, right? And they struggled sometimes passing the football, but now they got a guy like Dodds that you can give the football to when it's, first and goal at the 5, and you can probably rely on him to score a touchdown in 3 plays.
For Baylor, it's been a good day for them too. They've closed strong, and I would say I agree with you that they needed to. One last one before we let you go. I know you're busy. You're picking up the phone and all that fun stuff. Let's talk about the SMU Mustangs.
Okay,
it's a small class. They've gone very portal heavy. But when you take a look at what Rhett Lashley has done on the recruiting trail for 2024, coming off of an AAC championship as they make their transition to the ACC, those are different conferences. I will make that mistake. What do you see from the SMU Mustangs?
I really like what SMU does as a hybrid collaboration between the transfer portal and, recruiting Texas high school football talents and other high school talents across the country. I almost feel like every year you can kind of pencil it in. You remember the Bill Snyder days at Kansas State, right? Like you kind of knew what Bill Snyder was going to do. He was going to take 20 junior college kids, and your team was going to be kind of different year over year based on how – and they were going to be really good when they hit on those guys, and they were going to be decent when they didn't, but there was a lot of roster turnover there. Now I think that you can look at what SMU does annually and kind of understand the map or the map to success that they are trying to employ. They want to sign some really good high school football players. I would say about 50% of their class or so, maybe 40% is going to be from high school football talent, and the rest is going to be made up from transfer portals. And the reason why I think they're so successful in the transfer portal era is, 1, location of the school. I think that's very important. And 2, opportunity, right? Like I think that they offer a lot of opportunity to be successful in life after college. And guys who are transferring in the transfer portal have to realize sometimes that football is very important. It's like a fleeting timeline, right? Like you're gonna only have so many football games left at that point if you don't make it to the league. How can I set myself up for success? And a lot of these guys are coming back to Texas from other schools out of state and trying to reignite that flame at SMU. I think they're the premier destination for transfer portal talent maybe in the country. When you look at like the complete list, Ohio State had a tremendous class this year at the top, right? Like they got Caleb Downs and Julian Sand from Alabama. Well, they got 3 transfers from Alabama. But just like looking at some of the names that are coming in, these are big time dudes. Blake Burris, you remember him from Pleasant Grove?
Yeah.
Stud.
Yeah.
Like Blake Burris was an absolute stud at Pleasant Grove. Deuce Harmon.
Yeah,
Denton Geyer. Absolute baller coming back from A&M, coming to SMU. Ashton Cozart went to Oregon, now coming back to SMU, coming back to the Dallas area. Interesting story with Ashton Cozart, but I think at 6'3", 195 pounds, like Ashton Cozart has a chance to be an absolute ACC star. Justin Medlock, star at Manville, coming back from Utah. Omari Abor.
Yeah.
a former DCTF 5-star who went to Ohio State is now transferring back to SMU. But these are the two names that I think that you have to know. Savion Byrd.
Yep.
Coming back to SMU from Oklahoma, started at Duncanville, and Nate Anderson, also a transfer from Oklahoma, coming back to SMU. He was at Frisco Reedy. I think those are two instant impact guys that you have to know about. I think that they're starters next year, and they were really good at OU this year. These are dudes who can flat out play, and I think that if you can add two key members up front, your team is going to be pretty solid.
It is. It's a fun day here on National Signing Day. We've got complete coverage on TexasFootball.com of the comings and goings of the National Signing Day schedule. You can find all of Greg Powers' fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. Let's go over to Ashley Pickle for America's second favorite segment. Final thoughts.
Coming up at 2 o'clock today, Carter Yates and Mallory Hartley on ROF. They'll kind of be going more in depth on all the stuff that Powers was talking about National Signing Day. So interested to hear their take on where they think some of those holes have been filled from the college football perspective. But 2 o'clock, wherever you're watching this.
Powers, what are you doing the rest of the day?
You know what? You can stay tuned in to TexasFootball.com. We'll have some of our team breakdowns a little bit more in depth on like maybe some of your favorite standouts in the class, or they're my favorite standouts from the class. In all fairness,
don't lie to them.
My top 3 picks for each one of the the big schools, and then my super sleeper for each one of those schools. So if you're interested in recruiting, today's the day. Come in and find out who your next stars are going to be, and see if I get this super sleeper right. Feel free to hit me up in a few years and tell me I was wrong.
Absolutely, or right. Make sure you praise him as well. If you're gonna criticize you,
I don't know. You don't hear the praise, but you do hear the ones you missed.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's weird.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks for spending a little bit of your day with us. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. And, of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. For Ashley Pickle and Greg Powers, I'm Greg Tepper. Vince Young, please come get your Player of the Year trophy. We'll see you tomorrow on Texas Football Today.